Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Frank Tropea. We'll be discussing his fantastic book, The Avenging Angel, available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. And guys, listen, Frank was brought to our network today, People of Distinction, by some of the best movers in the business, Parchment Global Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, do yourself a favor and contact our great friends over there at Parchment. And you can find out more information on them at parchmentglobalpublishing.com. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Frank, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you so much for being a guest. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you very much for asking, Frank. And listen, I'm very much looking forward to this and really looking forward to the information that we're going to be able to receive from you today. Now, before we go into the book, and I know we have so much information to cover, Frank, start by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself. When did you start writing? Where did you graduate from? Tell us a little bit more about your background.
Well, I'm 72 years old, and I was born in Brockton, Mass. And I've always loved books ever since I was real little. And sometimes my parents would complain that I just get lost in a world of my own, but so be it. I had a very powerful and strong imagination, and I've always been interested in ghosts and the supernatural, the paranormal, etc. And unlike Christmas, Halloween was my favorite season.
Beautiful.
The books that I've written in the Go Ask the Dead series all deal with the supernatural, and they're very strong human elements of sexuality, of sexual obsession, and ultimately revenge.
Mm-hmm. Frank, first and foremost, thank you very much for articulating that. Secondly, listen, man, I didn't realize you were a fellow New Englander. This is amazing. So you're from Massachusetts. I've spent a lot of time in Brockton, have family there, and definitely have visited a number of times. Of course, I am from Rhode Island, right? So I'm a fellow New Englander myself. Mm-hmm. For the past 10 years, I moved to Southern California, so Los Angeles is where I rest my head now, but still have a lot of family and, of course, some lifelong friends in New England and in Rhode Island specifically, and it is always a pleasure to have a fellow New Englander here on the line with us, so welcome and thank you very much. Now, Frank, let's jump right in. First and foremost, how did you come about writing this book?
I took a character from the main character from Go Ask the Dead, and the sequel is, her name is Amanda Mannon, and she's a very troubled young lady when the novel first begins. Her mother, her late mother, Aurelia, was a character that Tennessee Williams would have loved and embellished upon. She was a strident nymphomaniac who never told Amanda who her father was. And so Amanda kind of thought, well, maybe the mother didn't even know. Actually, the mother and Amanda belong to this very, very powerful bloodline that is very psychically gifted, and there have been a lot of very powerful witches in the past in that family, the Mannons. And Amanda, a bit like the mother, can see the dead, communicate with them, interact with them. And in the book, Go Ask the Dead, she has, as a young adolescent girl, she's taken advantage of and has this mad affair with this Southern officer, Confederate officer, William, who died at the Battle of Gettysburg, and one of the many thousands who did. And he's very handsome, very charming, and very seductive. She becomes totally obsessed with him. She's caught and discouraged by her guardian great aunt, Lavinia, and punished. But she doesn't care. She doesn't stop. She can't. She's obsessed with William. And finally, she realizes how bad William is, and she drives him off. And she marries this high school sweetheart by the name of Craig Weston, who is a very upstanding and very nice young man who becomes a very expert lawyer. And but the thing was, by the time Craig helps rescue her from William, she's pregnant. And she thinks it's Craig's by a brief affair that they've had. But when the baby is born, its dark hair and dark eyes betray the heritage. It's William's, unbelievable as that may seem. But Craig says that it doesn't matter to him. He'll love the baby as his own. And Amanda loves Craig the more for saying that and meaning that. So they give this baby, whom they name Craig Jr., a very loving home and a good upbringing. Now the baby has supernatural gifts, but that is including psychokinesis. But later on, Amanda has this beautiful blonde little girl whom she names Angelique. But she never tells the children that they're only half brother and sister, because little Craig thinks that he's Craig Weston's son. Now, Amanda should be happy. She has 2 beautiful children. She has a nice house. She has a loving husband who makes a good living. She should be happy. But then one night, but there's just one thing. Amanda is very hot-blooded. She gets that from her dead nymphomaniacal mother, Aurelia. And Craig isn't totally able to sexually satisfy her. Oh, he's a good lover. But compared to William, what can I say? Anyway, she has this dream about William, and she hates William by this time. And she tries to drive him away. But he grabs her in a strong embrace, and he maddeningly kisses her. And she finds herself kissing him back, and then the dream ends. But Amanda knows William has come calling again. And slowly but surely, she falls into his embraces again. And she tries to hide it from Craig, but she can't. And finally, he beats the truth out of her, that William is back. And Craig is so upset that he takes his car, he drives away, takes his car and smashes it into a brick wall. He kills himself. So she's a widow now with these 2 young children. Fortunately, her great aunt Lavinia had left her entire fortune, so she and the kids are well provided for. But at this time, while she's living in Lavinia's mansion, William makes himself known to her 2 children, and he becomes like a father figure to them. In fact, when little Angelique is kidnapped by this horrible child pederast, it's Amanda's psychic skills and William and the little boy who go searching for Angelique and the kidnapper. They catch the kidnapper, they free the little girl, and they kill the pederast horribly. And it's the little boy who basically melts, with his own psychic power, melts the corpse away. It burns, and then even the bones burn. And there's nothing but ashes left, and then a supernatural wind comes up and blows them away. So there's no body, no case. So anyway, eventually, the young girl, Angelique, grows into this beautiful, beautiful adolescent girl. And somehow Amanda finds out that William had seduced her daughter, Angelique. And she goes frantic with fury and anger against William. She never thought he'd do that, but he did. And she turns the tables on William. He hurts her, but she totally, with using her own strong, very powerful energy, she destroys William completely. If one can kill a ghost, she killed him. So there's this black woman who's a nursemaid to the two children. She was a nursemaid to Amanda, Delia. And once Delia realized, along with Amanda, that the ghost had seduced Angelique, whom they both really love, both Amanda and Delia, protected and loved to the utmost. Delia wants to tear William apart physically with her own bare hands, but William kills her. And then it's total revenge against William. And William is shattered, completely dissolved into minute atoms by Amanda's fury. But Amanda is hurt too and dies. Now the children, as older adolescents, just weep continuously for their lost mother. So anyway, their obsession with their mother's tragic death and Delia's just leaves them each other. And finally, they were always very close from little children on. And finally, their sorrow turns into a profane love for each other. They become lovers. And the girl gets pregnant. But fortunately, the baby is healthy and normal. And they chance it again. They have a son this time. But they say that they're not related, kind of like the Flowers of the Attic series. They give themselves this guy's name. They don't say they're brother and sister and lovers and so on and so forth. But eventually the truth will out. This is a novel of sexual obsession, revenge, and all the very, very strong passions that go with that. I can honestly say there isn't a dull page in the novel. And one event leads to another. I recently finished writing a prequel, which gets into Amanda's mother, late mother Aurelia, who is dead and gone, and she's disappeared. By the time Amanda goes to Aunt Lavinia's mansion, and it's a mystery as to what happened to her mother. But later on, Amanda finds her mother's body in her family's cellar. She'd been killed by Amanda's stepfather for her flagrant adulteries, nymphomaniacal adulteries.
Oh, wow.
And Aurelia is about her life from a baby on. Aurelia grew up thinking that the two parents who raised her were her real parents, but that is not the case. These people are strong Southern Baptists in Virginia. They are very, very strict. And Aurelia is breathtakingly beautiful and seems to like boys real early. Well, every time she does the least little thing, they beat her up, they punish her. There's no love there. Finally, when the stepmother, Agnes, I think her name is, tells Aurelia that she was adopted as an infant by a man and girl, she goes haywire and she says, I'm going to drive to the city hall and get the records. I want to know who I came from. So the parents somehow get into the car, and they're all driving crazily. And somehow the car smashes into a big tree and tumbles down a flaming hill. And Aurelia is thrown out of the car, but their step-parents are killed, leaving Aurelia heir to their fortune. Aurelia does time in a hospital to recover from her injuries, during which she falls in love with this handsome young doctor who's concerned for her. later on, a great aunt of hers is appointed her legal guardian, and the woman tells her about her real heritage. She's from the Manor family, and she's a natural born witch. And Aurelia begins using her psychic powers. First off, she summons the handsome doctor to visit her. And he does, and it's mutual seduction. They have this mad affair. But unfortunately for him, the doctor becomes totally obsessed with her. And Aurelia can't stick with one man. She has many other affairs. The doctor becomes enraged. And finally, in a fall from his grace and character, he gets her on the bed and violently rapes her. And she destroys him. There are special rays coming from her beautiful eyes, and she incinerates him alive very quickly. And again, there's a magical wind that blows his dust and ashes out of a window into her garden. And she's very happy. But this rape results in a pregnancy. And Aurelia, who had earlier hired Delia, who's young at this time, she finds out from Delia that her grandmother had been a Cajun witch. So she asked Delia to make her this powerful herbal brew that will take care of the pregnancy that she doesn't want. And Aurelia tells her, when a woman's going to have a baby, that's between her, this woman, and God. I'm not going to do anything to hurt that baby. And Aurelia is furious. You know, I could fire you for this. And Delia says, I knows that, but you won't. You needs me. So anyway, Aurelia does need her, but she says, when I have this baby, it's up to you to take care of it. I don't even want to look at it. And Aurelia, after she has this baby with Delia's help, the baby's left to the total care of Delia, who loves it. Loves this little girl by the name of Amanda. And Amanda is emotionally, not physically, but emotionally neglected horribly by her mother. And when the mother marries a very handsome man by the name of Ted, she still feels nothing for her own daughter. In fact, when they go off on a honeymoon, when Amanda and Ted go off on a honeymoon to Hawaii, and Ted, who's enchanted by little Amanda, brings back a little jewelry necklace for her. That's the first present Amanda has ever had from any adult. And Amanda is very, very happy and loving to her stepfather. But during their honeymoon in Hawaii, Aurelia disappeared and came back with her hair all wild. Aurelia had been on her own honeymoon. Aurelia had been cavorting with the local men in Hawaii. Ted wants to divorce her, and she basically says, do you want to continue breathing? Using her powers, she stops him breathing, and he's choking. She says, I don't want to divorce you. I like your money and the position you gave me. Do you want to live or die? His eyes are pleading with her. She says, I guess you want to live. And then he starts breathing again, and he's gasping. She says, well, we know. Will you do as I say from now on? And he says, he weakly mumbles, yes. And he thinks, what have I gotten into? But Ted has his own faults. Finally, when he can stand it no more, and Aurelia goes out cavorting with men, finally he gets the drop on her, literally, and bashes the back of her head in with a heavy weight. Then he buries her body. Now, the cellar of their house, it's an old house, is haunted by angry black slaves who were killed by their white owners during the Emancipation Proclamation. But the ghosts don't bother Ted because, he's so angry he doesn't care. Just how they buries Aurelia's body with a coating of lime, buries her deeply in the cellar, thinking he got away with murder. So anyway, finally, Ted goes from bad to worse. He seduces his 15-year-old stepdaughter, Amanda, And then Amanda is tipped off by a ghost who tells her what she has come to the cellar. And Amanda starts digging up the spot where the ghost points out, and she discovers her mother's decayed remains. And then Ted finds out he tries to kill Amanda, but Amanda had slipped a gun from a cabinet into the pocket of her bathrobe, and she shoots Ted and she kills him. Then the ghost tells Amanda to call the police immediately. There are marks on Amanda's neck where Ted had tried to strangle her, so she'll just say it was self-defense, which it actually was, because Ted was trying to kill her. Amanda is put away in protective custody for a while, and then a great aunt, whom she's never heard of, Lavinia Mannon, adopts her. And that's the mansion where Amanda meets the ghost William, and she forms her own obsession with him.
Fantastic. Frank, wow. Guys, like I said, this is something, the journey that you're going to be taking is absolutely incredible. You know, what I love so much about this is I had a list filled with questions that I was ready to ask Frank to go into depth with all of these different nuances. And listen, Frank is so passionate about the books and that he's written that he just went down the line, answered all of the questions before I even had an opportunity to ask. That is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much, Frank. You made my job very easy. Guys, listen, you know what you have to do, okay? I'm going to say it for you one more time, even though I know you already know. Here on the line with Frank Tropea, we just finished discussing his amazing book, The Avenging Angel, available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. But guys, again, be mindful. That is not the only book that Frank has written. So when you go to his Amazon page, his Barnes & Noble page, and you go to pick up The Avenging Angel, while you're there, also be sure to look into Go Ask the Dead, The Princess Who Wept Diamonds, Dark Star Rising, Limbo, and then lastly, The Immortal Marilyn, the depiction of an icon. You surely will not be disappointed. There is so much valuable pieces of information here. There is so many journeys that you're going to be able to embark upon. So you know what you have to do. There's no getting around it. Amazon, Barnes & Noble are the places you have to go. Do yourself that favor and pick up copies of each of these fantastic narratives. Frank, this has been an absolute pleasure. Such a joy. Thank you very much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.